With a platform as big as the Olympics, how would you choose to stand up and support what you know is right? During the 1960s, African American civil rights movement was one of the biggest things of the 1960s era. In 1968, the Summer Olympics, held in Mexico City, hosted hundreds of countries to compete against one another. With many countries and many people being able to watch, the United States track team felt the need to stand up for what they know is right and demand equal rights for black and white athletes alike. Separate but unequal was one of the big phrases of the decade in order to acknowledge the idea that while black and athletes were given the same things, they did not have the same opportunities to succeed as one another. Specifically, on the United States Olympic track team, black athletes were not given the same hotel and living spaces where they were at the Olympics, and it was very obvious to many of the athletes that that needed to change. In addition to this, there was a lack of acknowledgement during advertising for black athletes and any of the compensation that was earned through the advertising on television and through commercials. While white athletes gained a decent amount of money through these advertisements, black athletes gained little to nothing. In the picture seen on the right of the background slide are two U.S. American athletes. Both Tommy Smith and John Carlos were seen as two of the fastest athletes on the United States team as well as in the entire world. The entire track team, following the assassination of MLK and the rest of the civil rights movement that was happening in the world, they felt the need to show support of the movement and make a sign that the entire world would be able to see. The decision, however, to find a mutual sign of support was very difficult to agree on between all of the athletes. Some athletes were hesitant to do a certain sign of support as they were worried about their own safety. Some athletes were earned a lot of money from their contracts that they had signed with certain companies, so they didn't want to have those revoked and risk any losses that they could take from that. So eventually what John Carlos and Tommy Smith decided on is the fist in the air that you see on the screen. Tommy Smith said that if I win, I am an American, not a black American. But if I did something bad, then they would say a Negro. Tommy Smith and the rest of the African American population felt that white support was only found when convenient or when they felt that they would be better off being grouped into all of American population. White people also felt that it was difficult to support the civil rights movement, as some feared for their jobs or even for their own well-being. Peter Norman specifically is the man standing in the third place spot next to both Tommy Smith and John Carlos. He had talked to both of the athletes prior to their sign of the Black Power movement, and he was in full support of them, but decided that he did not want to raise his fist as well. Even just by standing there and not even doing anything, the Australian Olympic team did not allow him to run any longer, and many people gave him a very difficult time as he supported what they were doing. Just by raising their fist in support of civil rights, Tommy Smith and John Carlos created a path for black Americans to continue their fight against prejudice. Even today, players and coaches will kneel before the national anthem and will wear shirts that display their desire and their demand to have the same rights and same treatment that white athletes and white people in general have. One quote that I saw that John Carlos had said from the article during the Washington Post, it said that he had deliberately covered up the USA on his uniform with a black t-shirt to reflect the shame I felt that my country was traveling in a snail's pace towards something that should be obvious to all people of goodwill. So John Carlos did not want to be part of the United States if he was not going to be accepted as an American or treated differently than anyone else. And just by reading this, I thought that it sounds very similar to Malcolm X and his claims that he was not American, but he was African. And until he had received the rights that all Americans deserve as and ones that they're promised, he would say that he is African. The Black Power Salute by Tommy Smith and John Carlos will always be remembered as one of the greatest signs of the civil movement for now and history in years to come.